And what I'm going to suggest here by analogy to think through this, I want to think of a chessboard um, not as this kind of one dimensional game board, but instead of having layers. And let's think of it in terms of a chessboard having three layers. And what I'm going to argue is the first chessboard is pretty much a product of what the oligarchs give us. Controlling the information on television and in our schools, they let you think that the game of geopolitics really exists largely at the first level. I think most of you, to some extent, viewing this right now, have begun to look at the second level. Like maybe there's other figures with other agendas at the second level. And there's operators that are looking at moves played on this level of the game and also moves played on this level of the game. And what I'm going to suggest when I talk about esoteric biopolitics, I want to take a glimpse into what I think the actual third level of the game is. And I want to just explore from vantage point through esoteric biopolitics how one can see three different dimensions of this game operating simultaneously. So, biopolitics, what we've discussed so far is that the individual, your thoughts, your opinions, your biology, and I'm going to argue your essence and your spirit are of great concern to them, down to your genetic code. I greatly admire, which is Michael Dillon, and this is from an article in Security Review called "The Biopolitics of Security in the 21st Century: An Introduction." And he's going to begin here citing from Foucault, who's very French and seems kind of a little, he's going to get some ideas, Dillon will say, embedded in Foucault nail exactly what the central security issues, he's talking about revolution and military affairs, central security issues are going to be in the 21st century. The first he's going to say there's three periods here. The first is demographics, concerns the population. That's what Foucault was talking about, and that begins in the early mid 19th century with the inception of Darwinism, and through this new rise of biology and the discipline of control, the powers that be are thinking of new methods of control through everything from statistics to advances in biology of ways to control people, what you're designed. And he's looking at this in very just specifically mechanistic terms. And he's going, the old problem all the way back from Clausewitz is that when you think of war and security, you're thinking of a physical body. But the new problematic that we're moving into is soma. The idea of the body itself is problematized. So this is the frontier we're about to engage in, is the idea that security in a body is something that that we have to think about in new ways. Another article by Michael Dillon. In this particular article, he's writing this with Julian Reed, and it's called Global Liberal Governance, Biopolitics, Security and War. He's doing this in the Millennium Journal of International Studies in 2001, and I think he makes some additionally great insights in this article. But he's talking here about what Foucault called a new kind of power, a kind of power knowledge that seeks to foster and promote life, from moving from um, biological to the virtual world. What we're really talking about, the end game here for Dillon, and what I have always thought that this was about in esoteric terms, was a battle for the code. So these oligarchical powers are extremely interested, not in your mind and your body, and yes, all that, but they're interested in your actual genetic code. It's part of a larger project. And that's what I get into when I talk about the esoteric piece of it. Um, but code, he's kind of structuring this argument. This is here on page 50 of his article. Code then appears to mark a new phase in biohistory. It forms a direct link, a common conceptual bond between the information and the molecular sciences, and is the foundation of the new biophilosophical discourse that they share. New biology, the name given to the life sciences in the 1920s, will unify all these different biological phenomena and bring us into the discovery of the gene, if you remember Francis Crick and so forth in 1953 and again in 1965. With that, the ability to crack the code of life. And I've hammered over and over and over. Please see Lily Kay's work on Who Wrote the Book of Life, Stanford University Press 2000, and she looks at how all of the dominant oligarchical classes, especially in the Western Hemisphere, put so much concentration in the early 20th century on what they would want to call the genetic revolution, finding out what DNA is, how to isolate it, and how to manipulate it and essentially reverse engineer it. So it's part of this larger Kabbalistic project to create life through cracking the code of life. And according to Lily Kay, it's simply not a language. It can't be cracked. You can't talk about it in materialistic terms like it's part of another language. And again, this is why this is esoteric. We have to start considering other dimensions. If our code is something that evolved, it should be crackable, according to Lily Kay. Um, So as a consequence, bodies and populations are becoming today something altogether different. While genetic science makes it possible to have trans-species exchange and life information, third-order cybernetics conceives of living systems in terms of machines, assemblage comprised of both organic body and inorganic matter. So this history of security is not a pursuit of universal value or preformed subjects, but a project ultimately of securitizing the whole of the human population.